Hey everyone, and welcome. I'm going to repaint the fireplace painting, best seat in the house. Appropriate right now because it's been so stormy everywhere in the country. We're in Florida, but it's pretty cold here, but we don't have all the storms that you guys have been hit with in so much of the East Coast. So anyways, let's get started. Um, I am going to paint on just my canvas paper. And I'm going to set my reference up here. And for colors, I have out, the acrylic colors that we usually use, a lot of the same colors that I like to use. And I've got white, and I do have the buttermilk because a lot of this painting has a softer tone to it. So a lot of times I'll mix the buttermilk versus the white on some of the little mixtures of colors. I have out the Payne's gray. I took a little black out. I couldn't remember. I think I needed to deepen the logs in the fire with black as opposed to the Payne's gray. Used a lot of Prussian blue in this painting for the cushions here and for the stripes, for the shading on the mug. I have our phthalo green out, our primary yellow, and our Liquitex. Same with the reds. I've got the orange out, quinacridone magenta. I also have the red Liquitex out. This is the difference. You see me most of the time using the Tuscan red, which I love for most things in the deco art. I do have the CAD red in the Liquitex. It's a warmer red. So sometimes if you have when I'm talking about cool and warm colors, you can see the difference here. This is more towards the orange side, and this is just towards the cooler blue side. And I took both out because I'm using a lot of red in the fireplace here. And I think for the Tuscan red, I might want in some of the pink for the socks. So I took both those colors out sometimes after I design the paintings, and I go back and I look at the color palette, and sometimes I've added different colors, or when I'm painting it again, I pull out colors I'm not sure of, but I try to get out what I think I'm going to need. I love the saffron yellow in the deco art, of course, so I've got that out that again. As you can see, cool and warm of the same color, yellow, very cool yellow, very warm yellow, more to the orange side. So I have the reds, the oranges, the quinacridone magenta, which we will use for some of the shading on the sock patterns. We can mix very easily our phthalo green and phthalo blue to get our teals, but I do sometimes just grab the peacock teal because it's a little more convenient and I have it. And traditional burnt umber, burnt sienna, the red brown burnt sienna is that red brown. And if you just have the burnt sienna, you could add a little bit of black or Payne's gray and darken that up. And I like the traditional burnt umber in the deco art. The regular burnt umber, I don't know why it's confusing that they have both. It's just not dark enough. So this traditional burnt umber is a little darker. So that's what we're going to start with. We're going to start with our background as usual. I think we'll do the fireplace first. It's kind of fun, and it's a kind of a fun little way to paint flames. Brickwork back here is pretty simple, basic. We're not going to paint each brick in and shade and highlight it. We're going to do it pretty quickly because it's going to be set in the back. And if we do too much detail on each brick, first of all, it's a lot of work. And second of all, it's not necessary. You just want to have the background a quick glance. It looks like brick. We don't want to overwork it. We have so much pattern on our little stockings and a pattern on our mug here that we don't want to be too busy. Cushion under here is pretty easy. Then we're going to just do the mug and the socks with the pattern. Again, I went through the pinks and teals and the yellows for the socks, but remember, you could do this any way you want. If you want to do this for a Christmas card next year, you could do red and greens, do Christmas patterns. You could put anything on the mug you want. If you have a favorite mug you want to kind of replicate or you want to put a saying on there, that's great too. So you learn some fun techniques here. You learn something, some of the flames, the fire, the brickwork, the steam coming off the coffee is fun. So let's get ready and get started and jump right into this. Okay, so let's start with our fireplace back here. I know the tracing is a little light for you to see it, but I did trace my pattern on. Really, what's just traced is the three logs. We're going to start with the flames. We're going to have a little bit of a dark area around them. I think I need to um, move my reference painting. It'll be easier over here. Okay. So let me get my flat brush. I think I will go ahead and just get a little bit of the dark in the background first. And that's going to be our browns, our traditional burnt umber, which is a dark brown, maybe a little black just to get it dark on the edges. We're going to go into a burnt sienna and we're just going to kind of bring it down in little fingers that are going to kind of go in between the flames. We'll leave in sort of a triangular bit there. So let me just start with the traditional burnt umber. I know it's going to need a second coat. You can see how you can see through it a little bit, but we're just going to go just around the edge of the fireplace. And as I'm going around, I don't want to really have this dry as a harsh line, so I can kind of just sort of use the dry brush to sort of bring that in a little bit. You can see how I'm sort of feathering it in there. I just want to get that feathered look. The flame's going to come right up into that. Just a little first coat here, just to kind of see where the fireplace starts and ends. And again, I'm going to darken this as it gets towards the outside edge. We're going to let that dry because if we go back with a darker brown on top of there now and a little black, it's just going to come up because the paint is wet. So that just gives us an idea where that's all going to go. I'm going to go into my light colors now. So I'm going to rinse that brush off. I'm going to get a little bit of the yellows and oranges in there right now. I know I'm going to cut this down and have the flame more here, but remember, you can have it however you want. This is just a kind of a good little technique on the flame. Bright colors there, yellows and oranges, which are generally transparent a little bit. So we are going to put down, start with kind of our lighter colors just to get up in the background, especially this primary yellow. It's got a real nice glow to it. I don't have to be super careful around where the logs are going to go. I'm going to paint those in a minute. But I just want to get this little bit of a yellow glow to start with. Behind it's going to be our oranges and reds. Just gives us a nice bright base to start on. And it's just going to put everything in place for us. We know now the logs will be here. We'll get into the dark up here. And I almost, when I'm going with the brown down and the flame up, I'm filling it in with the flat of my brush. I can get some nice broad strokes, but when I'm going up into the dark or with the dark down into the light, I'm doing the chisel edge of my brush and bringing it up almost in like little strokes. So that'll be like the little bits of the flame going up into the dark background. So that's just what I wanted just to start with. And I'm going to give it a minute to dry and I'll get my darker colors up here. What I can do while I'm waiting for that to dry is just get the brown in there and the dark for those logs. And I'll probably just use a flat brush, kind of the same shape almost. And I know those are going to be dark, so I may take a little of my traditional burnt umber and a little bit of Payne's gray with it just to get that dark, the bottom of these logs especially. Just a start to getting those placed. And those also will need another coat to deepen them up. Okay. I didn't mean to really go down here, but there, we'll just take that little brush and wipe that out. And it is starting to dry already. Sometimes it's good when the paint dries quick, and then other times you don't want it to dry that fast. But let's just get back up there and get that traditional burnt umber, a little Payne's gray in there. And actually, I'm going to switch to the bigger brush that I started with. I want that really dark on the edges, not all the way down into the flame, but up here on the outside edges. Let's keep that on the dark side. And I didn't take out much of that brown, did I? Let's get a little more out. And I'm going to come in now next with the burnt sienna because we're going to lighten it a little bit. I'm just going to dry the brush off and pop into that burnt sienna. I don't need to rinse that. And I want to mix it in with that brown while that's still wet. Paint is still a little transparent with that white in the background of the canvas, so we'll just darken it up as it dries as much as we need to. This is a really big flame. I had it more cut down on more of a triangle look. So I can sort of start getting that shape. I'm going to dry off that brush. I'm going to go into my red a little bit here now. And I'm going to be mostly in the browns. Just bring that down a little bit. And rinse that off. Might even take a little of the orange now and kind of where this is coming together. Actually, a little bit of yellow with the orange. I don't want to have it jump that much in tone, so we're just going to bring that down. This is the orange. It's getting a little bit orange and yellow. It's getting a little bit into the brown. I'll just do a little bit of blending with that. And then we're going to let that dry. I want that to really be able to bring some of those lights up into that dark. And I'll get a little burnt sienna and burnt umber. And I'm just going to finish the tops of these logs. And let's let that dry. Now let's start getting the background that we're going to want for our bricks. We're going to just start with the real dark, that same dark burnt umber. I'm going to go to a big brush. We have a lot of area to fill up. So whatever I can get in with the big brush, I will do it. And I'll come and cut around the smaller areas. Traditional burnt umber with some Payne's gray, whatever the darkest brown you have. But if it needs to even be a little darker, you can add the Payne's gray. But again, this will be required 2 coats. We want a really solid, opaque, dark back there. Just gonna go right around everything I can. Use whatever brush size works for you. Really on the dark side, I'm gonna get a little black in there. Black or Payne's gray, whatever works. I'm gonna skip to a small brush when I find I really need to get into those little nooks and crannies. But at least I got that big area done. Let's do a little bit over here. And I have that, it's like an ottoman maybe that her feet are propped up on, or a pillow or something. So that's going to be down underneath here for that area. And I'm going to get a smaller brush now and do the rest. I'm going to leave that brush there because I'm going to do that second coat with that brush in the bigger areas. And we are just going to get that shape in for the feet. Oh, you know what I did? I went right down here, and that's going to be the dark blue. I guess I didn't see my tracing line there. We'll just do that. My cup is traced very close to the edge over here, but I'll just have a little bit of dark showing there. Don't get the little cushion done here next while this all dries. Then we get a little big portion of the white covered up. If you hit any of the bits, like I think I came in a little close here on this sock, um, you can always take some white paint after and neaten that up. It would be easier than trying to get some of those pastel colors to cover this dark. But when we get to that, we'll worry about that. Okay, I'll rinse that off. We're going to go into the Prussian blue. Prussian blue and the buttermilk is what we're going to use down here. And then after it's all dry, I think I will wash in just a little really dark where the shadows would go under the cup and around the legs. So I'm going to go straight into my Prussian blue. Get that started. I know it's going to be dark under here. I know it's not dark here yet, but it's a start. But let's fill this all in with the Prussian blue to start because we want a nice dark base here. We want that lighter mug and those fun lighter socks with the pattern to really pop. So we don't need to do anything bright underneath or patterns. We just want something dark that's going to recede back. So to get that start, let's just put the Prussian blue in there because we're going to need that to dry and make it a little darker anyway. Now I'll go right over this brown actually, it's not bad. The brown's kind of a good base for it because it really gives it that, it's already coming in dark now. Yeah, we'll get that covered. We'll come back up and we'll finish the fireplace. Actually, we'll get this brown done too. It's drying pretty fast. I'm not worried about putting my hand in it so much. I'll try to be careful. You know, I'm always got that paint on me from laying my wrist into the paint. But let's just be careful or paint it upside down and get this bit done up here. This is going to be our dark. We want it a nice second coat there. That's a nice dark black aura Payne's gray in with your dark brown. Get that a nice dark back there. I even need a little more brown. That's black, brown. This was a fun painting to really learn some new techniques, the fire, the steam on the coffee, quick patterns. We're not going to fuss and do tiny little detailed patterns on those stockings. You can if you want. You can get real detailed, but you'll see really just a little rough idea because really remember it's knit socks. Say it's like a knitter heavier wool. You can't get detail if you are knitting in them that detailed. So we're gonna get what looks like a little snowflake pattern with just rough little strokes. We're not going to try to make them perfect, which makes it easier to paint and a little more realistic as well. I'm going to get a smaller brush for that handle. And when I'm painting these samples the second time around and I'm recording or we're painting it live, I don't want to take up tons of time. So I do go a little faster to show you the technique. You can take your time as you're painting. You can stop the video and start it. But I don't want I don't want to get too bogged down into things that will make the video hours and hours long because you're going to get the technique and then it's a matter of just going at your own pace. And if it's a new technique, it's good to practice it sometimes. Don't, you know, worry that it's not coming out exactly like mine. We talk about that a lot, but we want it to look exactly like yours, not exactly like mine. All right. You'll see how nice those bricks are going to just emerge from that dark. And the glow of the fire is here on the socks, which will be brighter. We don't want, it's not going to, I'll do a little glow of some of the yellow on some of the bricks, but it wouldn't be bright way over here. It'd just be a little bright around where the actual fire is. Okay, so that I think will be good enough to put our bricks on. Let's fill in the handle of the mug there. I might get a smaller round brush for that. Let's see. I know I have a nice shorter one. That's good. Sometimes I'd like a round brush that has a nice long tapered end for a lot of things, but for something like this where I'm just filling in, this is kind of a little stubby one. Okay, that's that. Let's really get into our fire over here. That'll be the fun part. And I think I will use the flat brush. Sometimes I will take one of those thinner, longer liner brushes to get some of these little strokes up at the end. But for now, I want to get a little orange, a little of the golden yellow. I'm going to work on the fire first. We'll come back and do the dark into it. And last, we'll do the little logs. So we started with this primary yellow, right? So I might want to put some on there just to kind of get some paint on there, something to blend into. And it's going to get a little orangey, so we could try. Actually, let's go right into the saffron yellow next. It's a little bit more orangey than the primary. It looks a little too orangey there, so I'm going to use a little both, I think. And so I'm going to just bring up eventually, and don't worry, go right over the top of these logs too a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of flicker of flame on them. And I'm going to start going up in little, like little pointy tongues of flames. And I know it's not covering these the dark bits perfectly, but I like the way it comes up on there and it's just a little bit darker. It gives it a little shadow. Down here, it's more just little glow, and up here, the flames are kind of shooting up. Let's get into our orange a little bit now. Now, so it's a little darker. I can sometimes take it from the top and bring it down in. Sometimes I'll just take it from the bottom up. I'm using this square brush on the chisel edge. Let me tip my canvas so we can kind of see how I'm doing it more. So sometimes I'm just kind of going down, sometimes I'm going up. I'm working from light to a little darker, so I don't want a big jump. I want it to be a little bit softer. We'll get into more red as we go. And down here, I'll just kind of pat in some of those other colors. Almost want to squint a little bit when you're doing this, and you kind of get the idea. I'll go in with some red. This is the orangier red. Bring it down from the top a little bit. If it's a little too bright, I'm going to grab this. The primary yellow as a little mixer for that. It's just tones it down a little bit. I don't want it to get real bright. I want to have the yellowy glow up until it gets a little brighter and darker, but little by little. I'm even going to bring some white on here too. I'm going to rinse that off because I'm going to grab a little white now on my brush. But again, I'm going to use it as a mixer with the yellow. So it's just a little lighter what we have here. And it might not show, and then I will go ahead and I will um, use more stronger white if I need to. But I want some of these little flames to be lighter. Now, what the adding a tiny bit of white does, it also makes it a little more opaque, so I can go right up into the dark a little bit and bring some of those flames. And I'm kind of going to wiggle them a little bit. I'm going to again tap some of this across the top of the log. We want the top of the log to not have a harsh line. It's going to be just sort of on fire. So I'm just now taking a little of that white and yellow because the white will allow me to put it on top of the log. I'm kind of just dabbing it there. And it'll give me some light spaces that are more opaque to actually lay on some of the red and oranges too after, which will usually not show up, but because we have that little base on there of some lights. I even have some white that's actually pure white jumping up into those flames. That's where I'm going to start taking my little rounder brush. And I'm going to take some white, pure white, be thinned down a tad. And across the top, I'm going to dance it a little bit across the top of the logs, just kind of making little strokes, dabs, dabs, some little lines. That's going to really obscure the top of that log and make it look like more like it's ashy or burning. Some could be just little dots. And then I'm going to actually have some flames coming up that are white. And so I'm going to just start them at the logs and kind of wiggle them and bring those little tongues of flame right up. You can kind of see it. And if there's something wet under here, great, because then it'll just be a little lighter. And then some will be more pure white. A little ones I'm going to do across here. So this is a little log in front. I'll kind of just do little, you can see just little bits of the flame shooting up. Some can just start up here and go up. And again, when I do these in white, I'm going to keep some that are pure white showing, but it'll also give me a little bit of a bright base to go back with an orange or a yellow and it'll be even brighter than what's behind there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just bring some of these up right over that log. I can dip right into my yellow or orange with a little of that white on there and get just a little bit of a lighter shade. I'm going to bring some more red in here too. I want to get a little more orangier. I know last time I mixed it with the yellow to make it kind of blend, but now I can come in with some stronger orange. And you can also do some of that on the tops of your logs here and there. I'm going to go into both reds, even that dark red now. The darker red, I'm going to do more up towards where we're heading into the dark up here. So I might just squiggle some of these down from the dark into. I've got a little red on my brush. I don't really want it to turn pink, so I want a little bit more red, but I want it more red, so I will just add a little water to the paint instead of white to just make it a little lighter. I don't want to put white because then I'd have pink, but I can take a wash now of that red, and if it looks like it needs a little more, it's just kind of washing that in there. Might be a little darker behind the socks here. I'm gonna get a little bit redder and orangier just across the bottom of the fireplace here. We're gonna put a little bit of a grate on there afterwards, but get a little bit of red down there. All right, let's work on the dark. That'll make that flame pop a little more. Just repeating what we did because it needs to be a little darker, just back out here on that outside edge. I'm almost going straight black, just around the very edge. It's coming in nice and opaque now. I'm not coming far into the flame. I'm just going to get this outside edge. I want to leave enough room that I can switch from this dark brown to the burnt sienna now to kind of bring it in. And when this dries, I'm going to just ever so lightly with some red or burnt sienna and dry brush on top of it. But now if I did it, it just mixes in. I want that dark in the background, but I want to put a little bit of a glow, a tiny bit of a glow there with some lighter browns. Okay, let's leave that for a minute now and look at the logs. I want them really dark along the bottom. So I'm taking that still dark, almost black, just across the bottom of the logs. Just doing it kind of roughly, so it's just a bit of a shadow underneath there. I want some heavier strokes now, maybe just some burnt sienna. You could just stroke that in there. Remember, it gets lighter as it gets to the top of the log. And I can even take some red oranges and dab those on because we did it once, but now with the second coat, we get them a little darker in places, brighter maybe, a little orange in there. I even had some white, and I even put a couple of little dots of blue, believe it or not. And I don't know why, but it was kind of nice. So if I just take a tiny bit of my Prussian and a little white, oops. I just put a few little dabs of some blue underneath the flame, just here and there. Just adds a little something. I don't know why. And that is drying. Might take a little bit of like a little wash of glaze kind of the orange. This is pretty dry in here. I can just bring some more orange in here. Step back, squint, and see if it needs anything. It might not even need another thing, but that looks really flame and like and cozy to me. This has dried pretty much. So all I want to do is like a very light dry brush of, I started with burnt sienna, take most of it off, and I'm just dry brushing on top. And it gives me that, it gives the look, got a little bit of the canvas texture showing through. And it sort of transitions from the real dark into this lighter area. So just a little bit of very bit dry brush there. Good enough. We have a dark over here now. Um, and what we're going to do, we're not going to, like I said, sketch little tiny bricks. We're going to just make some highlights that are going to just appear like the bricks are coming out. And then we may put a little dark in between them. So I pick a brush that is a little bit the size of the bricks might be. So I would say that this brush would be perfect. And I'm just going to line them up the way bricks would be stacked. I'm going to take burnt sienna maybe, a little red. I just want something a little lighter brick shaped shade. And let me try it with just the burnt sienna and a little bit of red. And then afterwards, I'm going to touch it. I'm going to mix a little bit of a lighter shade with the buttermilk, just a little lighter, and just throw a few highlights here and there. So if I start up here, say I'm building my brick wall, I may go a little lighter just so that you can see it on camera, but I just start with brick shapes, leaving a space in between. And it's pretty simple. And then you know how bricks will be staggered, so I don't want to line them up right on top of each other. So I will kind of make a brick under where there's a separation there, make a little half one there. And I'm mixing as I go because I want some to be more like a burnt sienna color. Some could be a little closer to a red. Pull out what you have. You might have some alizarin that would work. You just want some brick colors. I'm going a little lighter now because I want you to be able to see it, but we are going to brighten them just a tiny bit here and there. So I'm just sticking my brush into burnt sienna and my Tuscan red sometimes, just so that they just mix, that they're a little different each time. I'm not sitting here forming perfect little bricks. I'm doing it pretty quick because when I come back, if I want to, I can reshape them a little. I could sort of round them a little bit when I do the the highlights. And that one's going to be a little off, so I'm just going to try to cheat and make a tiny one there. So I can get another one there. And so forth and so on. So we'll just layer those in. You can see how I got a little space left between them. They seem to be growing a little bit right here, but and I really like it if you can, and I have a hard time with this too sometimes, is being a little more random, not like trying to make them all exactly the same, because that's what I tend to do sometimes. But I really want, like I said, some you could go into the lighter red, some could be more just the brown. Do the best you can behind these things, just getting a little peek of the bricks through. And they're peeking through here too. Just a little thing in the back. You don't have to worry about where exactly those are going. I'm going to grab a tiny bit more of my burnt sienna. Fun way to do bricks if you're doing a building even. Fireplace, brick walls, but any just a random background could be brick. And you can see why I don't want to go and do each brick individually and perfectly. Because if you were sitting and looking at the fireplace, squint your eyes. Your eyes aren't going to see all the perfect little bits. And it's the camera, guys, that I'm going to go a little brighter just so you can see them better. So they are there, dark in the background. Now I'm just going to dry the extra paint off the brush maybe and go back in and get a little buttermilk. And here's where you're going to mix a little lighter shade, and you don't want it too light. And actually, the best thing is to do is let this dry, because with the little dry brush of some of those lights here and there, if the texture of the canvas is showing through and it's like a dry brush, it kind of gives it a cool texture. So I don't want to go on there just yet. I'm going to give it just a second. So why don't I let that dry a minute and work on our cushiony thing there, our whatever it is, cushion, ottoman, blanket. Started it with the Prussian blue. Second coat will cover way better, but I want to have a little bit of a dark shadow. So I'll take a little black or actually Payne's gray, get a darker shade, and I'm going to do that right around the cup. And again, we can just drop in a wash of dark in these places, like with a little side load of color. Of course, the lawn guys will come by now because I'm recording. And it shouldn't be long, so hopefully it won't obscure the audio too much. But there we are, just where there would be a shadow. Now, nice to be able to blend while it's wet and wet. I just wipe the brush off and just take the straight burnt Prussian blue. I go around where my dark is first, because that way it gives me a blend wet and wet. And so it blends that little dark in. And now let's just get the rest covered. And if we can just keep it all wet and wet and put our highlight in there, great. If you want to just do this little section first and work section by section, you can, but I'm just going to work a little fast so we can just get that done. I'm just going to take the dirty brush now and take a little bit of buttermilk on there. See, with such a dirty brush, it's going to turn into a light blue. And now I'm just going to kind of go in here and I like the painterly look. I like to see the brush strokes, but I'm also blending it a little bit. Because it's kind of a rougher, furry texture, plush texture, whatever. So same thing, which is a little bit in between the legs. You hardly see that. If it gets mixed into the blue too much and it's not light at all, then you just grab the tiniest little bit and kind of work it in there. So now it's pretty much all wet. You've got some light, but I do want to get it a little lighter even, so I might just take a little stronger of that, mix that out. And kind of along the top here, it'd be a little lighter maybe. But I don't want to leave it as a line, so I'll kind of work that down a little bit. I can get it a little lighter around some of these places. Still a little tacky, so it allows me to kind of put those on in brush strokes. And what I do is if I put it on and it's too bright or something, you just kind of soften it. If you start picking up too much light, that's when I brush off. And just get it the way you want. Don't worry about copying what mine looks like. Just get some nice painterly lights in there. If you want it to be even a little brighter, you could take the littlest bit of white at the end and just do a few of those. So I had the kind of a softer, buttermilky blue mixture, but a little bit with just the white you might want. Not necessarily, I don't think. It's not really making much of a difference, but there we are. Let's leave that, because if we overwork it, then it's too much. We'll get our shadows back in again when that dries. Now we're dry up here. I'm just going to take the same brush. Actually, I used the smaller one for the bricks. I've got my burnt sienna, a little red. I'm mixing up the same color I used for the brick so that I could just slightly lighten it with a little buttermilk. And let's just see how that's gonna look. So I'm gonna just take, I think that might be too light. Take a little orange actually in that mix. So I'm just gonna kind of hit them here and there. I'm almost gliding, it's kind of a dry brush. I'm almost gliding it across the top, but I don't want to do every single brick like this. So I'll do some on this side, some just rub it over, some could stay dark. And I'm just giving them here and there some little lights. I might get a little gold in there. Let's see. Because I am going to put a little bit of like a little gold over in some of these just around the fireplace. Just get a little lighter mixture of whatever your bricks are. And can even, I don't know if you can even hear, but just sliding that brush over there. I'm not really painting on a big bit of color. I'm really running out of color now, but it does give me some nice lights here and there. I'll get a little more, but I'm using a real light touch, especially when I reload. I'm going to use a real light touch. And can you see they're starting to look like bricks now? A little burnt sienna with the buttermilk might make another light. That looks about the same, but you could try any of your other ready colors. Brown, anything a brick color, just getting us some lights in there. All right, so that's just enough. I'm going to come back with a little glow. You know how we glaze with that primary yellow sometimes. And I'm also going to do a little trim around the fireplace. So let's do that. That's going to be kind of dark. So traditional burnt umber in your black or Payne's gray. And let's just get a dark little edge around the fireplace. So we got that. This comes down to here. A little dark there. And a little dark cross here. I do take a little dark and almost like a little grid in front here. It's really just painted across. And I just put these little, it just gives a little bit like there's something in front of the fireplace. I don't shade or anything. I just stick that in there. I think I need to get around this sock a little bit better. That dark. And now if you need to, actually same brush is good. I'm going to go right into black. And I'm not going to go and outline every brick, but I do run a little dark in between the separations if it needs it. You're not going to barely see it there, but I'm just running it, especially if my background didn't get really opaque. This just sort of sets them apart a little bit. So I'm just going to do that here and there. You can do it as much or as little as you like. I know under the cup here, I got some white dots and it was kind of transparent, so that works to separate some of those. And when you look at it, you can see, you know, if you need anything else. I take a little bit of, like I said, let's try the primary yellow. It's usually a nice glow. Just a glaze, which is just watered down. Add just a little clean water to that. And I might just on some of these bricks, just that are close to the fireplace, I'm just adding a little gold glow. You could do that with a little orange or the saffron or whatever, but just around there, a little glow. And just to separate that edge there on that side, I think I'll take maybe a little saffron, kind of really watered down, or the yellow, either one. And I'm just going to go along the outside edge here, just as a little separation. And actually, you know what I did when I was doing the line work for the bricks? I just went a little dark on this little edge here. And that's it for the background. The fireplace, I think, is good. You can come back as much as you want and add little orangey bits and in and out there. Okay, so now we have the fun part, the fun patterned the cup. And you can see what I'm going to do is if I kind of come a little too far with the paint, I can sort of reshape it. It just makes it easier to cover. If you just put a little white on top of if you hit anything that is going to be lighter later, you can just sort of reshape that. And then when that's dry, we can stop painting it. Second coat if we need to. I can really see that little bit of red underneath. My socks are a little uneven, so let me fix those up. I should have been a little more careful there. I just want to have a nice smooth line. While this is drying, we'll put our shadows around the edge. And how are we up here? Let's see. That's good. I have my lines sketched on there for the pattern. Again, you could go with a different palette. You could say, oh, I want different colors. I want to make it, you could do little hearts for Valentine's Day and the socks and or the mug. You can mix it up any way you want. Okay, so I'm going to go to a flat, a side load with just some clean, so just loading with some clean water. I'm going to get into that. I'm going to go right Payne's Gray, I think, because that's a blue dark. And I'm going to just pat it out a little bit. And I just want to reinforce that shadow under the mug there. And that would even straighten it out because mine's a little wonky there. And then right down the sides of the socks. So I just, when I need to, I just add some more clean water. I pat it dry, just put the corner of my brush in the dark and then just pat it out a little bit. And then with that dark side facing the object, the socks, I just kind of, and I reload if I need to. And just this little, it just is going to set them out a little more. It just gives a better shadow. I did somehow get a little white on here, so I'm just gonna go over that a tiny bit so it gets rid of those little white. It just was a little speckle of white somehow got on there. So that's good. Let's put the dark in the coffee cup. It could be coffee, it could be hot chocolate, tea, whatever you like. I'm just gonna make it dark so it's, for me, it would be hot chocolate, but let's just get that middle section there. And again, you know how we're going on the white canvas, so we'll need a few coats to get that dark. We'll paint the mug, we'll put the design work on. And then at the end, when everything's dry, we'll put that little bit of steam coming up. So there's that. I might put my stripes on my socks while I'm waiting for things to dry over here. We're just going to base coat them a color, then we'll give them a little highlight and or shading if they need it. I have, for my pink, used my dragon fruit. You can take quinacridone in some white, or actually better, even quinacridone in some of your buttermilk would be a nice soft pink, but I have this, so it's just a little quicker. So why don't I just do the toes with the pink? And again, you can use these colors, you can mix them up, you can do whatever you like. You could use a solid stocking and just put a pattern all over the whole thing, if you wish. Probably do a second coat on some of these colors, depending on how well the coverage is. And again, I'm going a little fast. I would go a little slower, be a little more careful with these shapes. But again, you can do that on yours. I don't want to have you sit while I'm carefully outlining and filling in every little thing. I'll just show you the technique. We have a lighter colored pink here, but down here, this top stripe is the same pink. So let's just kind of, you'll see how they kind of, the stripes are curved a little bit to follow the round shape of the leg. So if you did them straight across and you wonder like, why does that look a little off? It's just try to make a little curve. So I'm going to take a little maybe buttermilk and mix up a little lighter shade of pink for this area, and that's to be a little lighter even. And again, you could mix that with white or you can mix it with buttermilk, whatever works for you. I find it easy just to outline them and then just fill them in. This one won't need a second coat. When you have the lighter color involved, it again makes it a little more opaque, so you don't have to do additional coats on that light color. We'll do a little highlight in the middle, dark on the edges. And I'm going to rinse that off and I'll get into the yellow next. That's like the saffron. And this is pretty opaque too, so we don't have to worry about, I don't think we have to worry about doing two coats of this one. You might like them with just the stripes and not all the patterns too. I can see my pencil, my tracing line a little through there. I don't think it will matter because we're putting those little trees design on this particular stripe, so I think that's fine. And we also have another yellow stripe up here. It's nice when the colors cover in one stroke, isn't it? Okay, now we'll go and do the teal, which is the peacock teal. And that, just where you see it. And again, any color, it doesn't have to be these colors that I chose. Guess that pink is still a little wet, so I'm dragging a little of that in. I'll go closer to the yellow for now. Nice when you have a flat brush that's kind of the size that you need. You know, I love my flat brushes. I don't even mind if that's a little mixed. I can actually, I think I've gone a little too far onto the pink section, so I can just go with my clean brush and sort of clean that up. Actually, you know what? There's a second coat of pink going on there, so we won't worry about that. Just this little edge here we didn't get. And then we have a stripe above the pink as well. You can see I didn't really have much of a curve in that little stripe, so I can just make that right over the pink with my brush. Prussian blue is next. It's darker, so I'm just going to wipe the brush off and go right into the Prussian because I don't really need to wash that off. And let's just get that nice dark Prussian blue in there. Really pretty against the pink and the gold, actually. Okay. Okay, so basically they're filled in. Let's go back and do a second coat on that little coffee cup with the coffee there. Just want that to be a little darker so you can see that second coat really does the job. Okay, so the cup is the teal. I have a lighter edge around here. Looks like my cup's a little wonky shaped there, but I think I'll just, let's see if I could just maybe come in with the dark to make that a little bit, instead of trying to get it covered with that light color back there. Let's just do that. And let me just get the teal in there to start. So we're just going to get the teal in solid, and then we'll worry about the light and the dark shading. Let's just get this color in there to get the white covered. The rim up here is light, so just go right around that for now. The handle will be teal as well, but I'm going to paint the cup first. Just because. Like watching paint dry when I'm doing all the filling in here. While I have this, I can do a second coat if I need to over here at all with this color. If it needs a little bit of coverage, we can just do a little second coat, kind of where that pink was showing. Okay. And I will need a smaller brush for that handle. And we can use this one. Kind of a small brush. I usually go a little heavier, maybe a flat side loaded, but it's in my hand, so we'll use this one. Well, we'll do the highlighting and shading next, but let's let this first coat dry. And let me just squint and look at the rim here. Just kind of, so if I squint, I can kind of see if that needs a little adjusting. Okay. I'm gonna do a second coat where I need to on the socks because I don't want to butt that light up against that teal till that's dry. So we know we need to do a little more on the pink. The second coat, I'm not going around and doing perfect edges unless I have something I have to cover up. Let's just get a little more opaque. I don't need to do that lighter one. That's pretty well covered. And because we're putting designs on here and shading and highlight, I bet you if I didn't even put the second coat on, it would be fine. But I don't know. Sometimes I just want to have it a nice opaque coverage to start. But again, mightn't be terribly necessary. The only other one we need is the Prussian blue. Just a little bit more coverage there. A little stripe across there. And there we have that. And I'm going to use the buttermilk, I think, for my edge up here. This might be a little heavy, but let's just try it. Because we can't just leave the white of the canvas. I like the buttermilk because then I can put a little white highlight on it. If I started white, it would be hard to get any sort of highlight. This brush is pretty good because the width of it is just about what I need. And we will shade in the back side here to make that back side of the cup recede back, but we can do that afterwards. And this is still a little tacky. Let's kind of hop over, do our patterns. Again, I'm going to do them a little rougher because just spending that time to make them perfect is not necessary and it wouldn't look as realistic. So anyway, the top, I'm going to use the darks for, okay. So the top up here just has a little squiggly design. It's kind of like a dark maroon, and we can make that easily with our red, our Tuscan red. Any red you have, though, is fine. Oh, let me plug in my computer. Hang on. I did have it plugged in, and I forgot that I lost the plug kind of slipped out. And before we lose that, because we don't want to do this a third time, let me plug this in. And there. Okay, so we don't have much more to do now, really. The hard part's all done. Now we have the fun part. Okay, so I'm going to make a little bit of a maroon. I mean, if you have an alizarin crimson or a maroon you like, you can use it. Sometimes they're just not dark enough. So I like to add a little Prussian or Payne's Gray, whatever you have handy, and just make a maroon. And I just did a little design on the tops of I started them a little higher with the toes a little higher, and I just kind of squiggled it like this because it's a knit pattern. So a lot of the things I've done on here, I've kind of done this back and forth little kind of pattern just to kind of replicate the knit. I get it a little smaller as I get to the edge. This is a little wet still, but I'm going to go right on top. So you can see it's not a perfect little stitch line. I could start even on the side and just get a little bigger as I go. And make it enjoyable, make it fun. If you're stressing about trying to get it just perfect, it's really not as much fun. And I did it again a little bit on these guys. Just kind of little squiggles back and forth. And then I'm just going to go with a light pink in between to kind of just give it a little highlight. So I'm going to rinse my brush now because I don't need that anymore. I'm going to just take the light. I have a pink back here already a little lighter, so I'm going to get a little lighter even. But I want to dry brush this on. So, and again, I might put it on there and it might not be light enough, but I want just a little paint on there. So I can kind of go and get the texture of the canvas. It's a little light. You can't even see it from where you are. So maybe a little white will brighten it up a little more too. So I'm basically just going to go in between what I have there and get it a little lighter in the toes. I'm just going to go very lightly at the top and just kind of squeeze some of that light in between. Again, it's kind of rough, painterly. And that's just, actually that white helped make it a little lighter. Okay. I did that in between down here, but I just basically squiggled back and forth. With a wider brush, I did a little light across here, but it's probably going to be mostly just even white. Let me just try white, take most of it off. And I'm just going to go with the shape of the sock. So I'm just going to make some light strokes lightly across. I'm putting it lightly and I can't really see it. So I'm getting a little brighter, but I want you to start light because then you can see what you might need. So there, just a little lightening there. I did the same thing on the yellow section. So let me do that first. So we've got the saffron yellow, but let's mix some white with that to get a little lighter shade. And just with that lighter shade, I'm going to go a little lighter so the camera picks it up. And you can almost do it in the middle, curve with the stripe and leave the edges a little bit more of the strong yellow, and that gives you your shadow without having to put a shadow in, and this gives you your highlight. And that works. I did a little design similar with the teal sections, and what I'm going to use is some of the phthalo green, actually, maybe with a little of that. I want it just a little darker. And it's almost like a little Christmas tree design. That's actually too light. So maybe I'll take a little of that with my blue and phthalo. And I just want little Christmas tree shapes, barely, like they're just like little triangles. They're kind of what's up here, but they're a little shorter. They're kind of triangle squiggles, really. Oh, and you know what? Well, do that because I just realized I put the tree shape up here, but I do go and kind of go back and forth with a darker teal in there on that side too. It was less tree shape as just squiggles. And then I do a little bit darker on here. So they're just kind of a little bit, again, back and forth to kind of replicate a little bit of the knit. And just a little triangle tree shape in the center of the little band. On this one, I just did little line work, so I wanted a little darker, so I'm adding a little Prussian, we'll see. And I just did squiggles like that. You can thin it down a little bit if you need it to flow a little better. I overlapped it into the stripe next to it a little bit. Pretty simple. You could go by the reference photo because they're of course neater on there because I wasn't going along so quickly, but that's that. I think I took a lighter shade of the teal, maybe just a little lighter, maybe a little buttermilk. Might have just gotten a little lighter shade in those. The snowflake designs on the two bands. We have the snowflake design on the snow pinks and on the Prussian. Oh, I did give the Prussian blue a little lighter on the bands too. So let's just get the Prussian blue, a little bit of white or buttermilk. And then again, across the middles is where I got a little lighter, and across the middle here. And just a little highlight to give it a little roundness. Then I'm going to thin some white. And I used white, not buttermilk here for these little designs. And I did a little bit in between here. Get that little puddle of white mix, so we'll just go along with that. On this thin line, I just simply did a zigzag. And then a snowflake design here, a rough snowflake design, nothing fancy. And I really went kind of quickly because it kind of kept me from being too fancy. I just kind of made the little cross and then the little lines through it like a little star. Pretty rough. And this one, I don't know if I wouldn't thin the paint too much because I want it kind of opaque. So I just did these little star snowflakes all along. Then I did in the even on the reference photo, you see they're really wonky. I just dabbed the brush along, didn't try to make perfect circles. And some are thinner and some are thicker. There's a little border. And then I gave them just little bits of a little bit, maybe not on every little arm even, but some little dots that would almost be at the end of the little snowflake and in the middle. But I didn't really, you can see how messy that looks, but I wanted it to be that way because if it's knit in, it's not going to be so perfect. Same idea down here. I did the same sort of thing. On purpose, not perfect. On the coffee cup, I got much more precise on the little snowflake design. So you can, if you want to get detail-y, that would be the place to do it there. And in this one, I didn't really put the border of, I just kind of gave it some dots. Dots in the middle, a little bit. And since this one, you can't really see it on camera well, it doesn't have a design, so I do make sure that the little highlight is showing up. I'm just doing a little heavier for the camera there. And there we are. That's how easy the socks are. So now I'm going to do a little swirl kind of in the middle of the coffee. So I'm just taking the burnt umber and a little bit of buttermilk, and I could just kind of make a little swirl in there. The steam's going to go over that. I'm going to do a little highlight, a little shadow rather of Prussian blue. I'm going to get just a little flat brush. I want it just down here. The top little lip is going to be more white. So I'm going to take a little bit of Payne's Gray on my brush. I'm really going to have it pretty watery. I want to get a lot of water in there. And I just want, you can almost see, you know what will help? Let's just do a little line work first, because that'll show you where to start that shadow. And it can be rough because you can go over this, but I did take the teal, thin it down so we can do a little line work. So I'm adding some water to it. And that is going to be the edge of your cup. So in the back here, let's see. Let me do the front first. So the front here is going to have a little line work that goes right like that. And let me even it now because I got really wonky there, but it's just going to go right across there. But it's going to go up here. So you can see this is the area where we want to shade, but now that we have this little edge, we know where to put that shading. And then it's going to be a little lighter on the outside edge, which we can do that now if we want. I'm just going to go right over that buttermilk area we did with white. I'm thinning it a little bit just to make it easier to go round. So the back in this little front section is just a little lighter. Ceramic mug, so it might have a little shine to it even. And it's hardly going to look any different, but it's just a little bit, the white's more opaque, so it does cover nice if you want to fix your shape at all. But there. And if your back is a little wonky, this is a great way to straighten it up with this white. I kind of fixed mine with the dark because it was wonky, and I think that's good enough. Okay, that's good enough. Now I know where that little shadow, and it's just the watered down Payne's Gray, and it's just this little section, so I can just go in there with a bit. I'm gonna go more into the Prussian, I think. It's looking a little gray. Maybe I grabbed black, my mistake, but let's just go with a little of the Prussian blue, really watered down. Just put a little shadow back there. I sort of overshot it a little bit. We'll just take that out. And you probably will go onto your little teal rim a little if you need to go afterwards. Just go over that little rim again. But it's just nice to know where that shadow's going. I went pretty dark here. It's not supposed to be that dark. So I will just take clean water and try to take some out because we want it darker on the two edges. So I'm just taking clean water now and lifting it, but you could also just put a little more buttermilk back in there. But I wanted it just to have a little shadow back there, kind of on the two edges. So I wiped some of it out of the middle there, but you could also just as easy, if it's dry, take a little bit of your buttermilk and get that in the middle and lighten it. There. And when that's all dry, then we can put that steam up. So if all your work back here is not perfect, which it shouldn't be anyway, because it's just, you know, what it is, the little steam comes right over it and no one's looking for that perfect line. So now we want to have dark and light on our handle and on our mug. So the shadow on the handle, let's do that first because that's the pickiest bit. I'm going to just take a shade, a wash of the Prussian blue. It's just going to be a little shadow inside the handle right there. And I'm going to just run it down the side here. So this is just Prussian blue that I've added some water to. Down here, it gets a little bit of a shadow because that's a heavier inside bit of the handle. So I'm going to go a little exaggerated a little bit with heavier Prussian. So I just did a little bit here. I took it right down with a chisel edge, or you just use your liner brush down that inside section, but here it gets a little bit thicker. And then the other areas are just going to get a little lighter, but we want that to dry first. So you can kind of even look at your reference photo and just see where that dark is. You can even get this a little darker if you need to. And then we're going to also have a shadow. Since I have this little brush in my hand, I will get bigger, but the right side is going to be in shadow. But if we go around the handle like that, really makes a nice area for the top of the handle to attach. Down here, I'm just going to go around a little bit, but I'm going to get my bigger brush because this is going to dry too fast and I'm not going to be able to blend. And I'm going to put more teal in there, but I wanted to show you where that went. And now if I just take more Prussian blue, well, this is still wet, and kind of get a little bit of a shadow started. I want to blend into my teal kind of quickly so that I don't have this harsh line, right? So that's pretty wet. I'll just dry the brush off and go right into the teal. Right into the teal and the mug. But remember, I leave a little space between before I start mixing so that I can sort of have something to mix into. And I'm just mixing those lights and darks together. Dry off your brush as you need to. Want to keep it light out towards here. I don't want to drag that Prussian blue out too much, so I'm sort of just kind of softening the edge. And I'm getting that dark in there. And I'm using little crisscrossy strokes so because I know I can see through it a little bit. It just kind of has a nicer look, painterly look with I do, there's these little back and forths. And then get back into I want to work it right across so that I can start getting into a lighter edge over here, but this middle needs a little bit of a second coat. So I'm just going to just use the same color. It's not really changing what's behind it, but I'm just doing that texture with this crisscrossy bits. I don't know, I got a little bit there. And now I want it lighter here, and I am going to go with white for this light edge. I really want a nice shine. The glow is going to be over here, giving it a little bit of highlight. So I'm just going to go really quickly right up the side with that white, just to get it in there like we did with the shadow over here. Start bringing it in a little bit. And I want it to be even brighter. So I'm going to get a little bit more right inside here. And now I'm starting to bring it down into that teal, which is still a little wet. If I overshoot it like I just did here, I can just take a brush and just brush that out. Step back from it, squint some, and then you're going to start seeing where you need it lighter, darker, shape-wise. And I really want it a little lighter even still. Maybe I'll just let it just get a little tacky before I can see that I want to fix my little line here because now I've hit that a bit. So I can always adjust that. I can get my highlight on my handle. I might just use my little round stubby brush. And because that teal is dry, let me just re-wet that teal a little bit. It's a little streaky anyway. It also gives me a chance to reshape if it's a little weird. And it just covers a little better. But now I will go into my whites with the same dirty brush because I want it a little lighter on this little bit of the handle. And because the teal's wet, it's blending almost by itself. And if it's not bright enough, you can just go back when it's a little tacky, but I want to go right down this side with the light. Just white on the dirty brush. And this is just the edge of that handle. So it's just the edge. I might get a little buttermilk on there too, so it's a little softer. And again, if it's not bright enough, it might not be. We can just go over that again in a minute. Same with making it a little darker on the shadows if we need to. I'm just going to make this little bit of wall darker back here. A couple little spots I didn't get close enough to. And I think that might be good. I might just go in here just to get just onto the dry paint with a little bit of this dry on there, just to sort of get that texture that I like, that painterly texture. And I would do the same maybe with some white because I wanted it a little bit brighter on this side. Okay, then just the little snowflakes, which are fine on there and they are detailed. So I'm just rinse off these brushes that I was using. When I get to my little fine brush, whatever you might have for a little liner, I have one that's I like that's pretty small, not the real long tip, just enough that I can control it. Then you wipe down really well to get the way you like it. Remember the design wraps around the mug, so sometimes you'll just see half of the design. So for a whole one, I would just I'll do it to the side so you can kind of see. So I get my cross on there. And then I do in the middle. And then, like I said, sometimes it's just a little bit showing. This looks more natural. And then how I decorate the little arms is like kind of do them a little differently sometimes, but these tall ones, I just do like little V strokes. And then I do the straight line across these middle ones. But this isn't a hard and fast rule. You can just do any shape you like. I put the little dots on after. So just to make it easier to think about, I just do little V strokes on the main cross and then little strokes across on these to fill in. And I can go a little heavier over here where the highlight is. Maybe do it a second coat just so it stands out. And then that sort of thing. So you're just going to kind of finish up your design here, and then that is pretty much it, you guys. The steam we'll just do real quick. And again, I'm doing this a little fast. You can take a little more time on this little one. I do like this design a little bit finer and a little more detailed. I don't know why, just on the mug, because if it was printed on the mug, it would be a little bit more in focus, and on the knit part, it would be a little um, rougher. And so at the very ends, I just do like a little heart shape on this one. I usually just do dots, but I just did little, when we do the two little strokes and get a little heart shape on the end there. And little dots just for some texture you could put in the middle. And the steam is just watered down. Um, I use white or buttermilk. I think you can do either. I take just a wet brush, kind of wet, a little bit in the corner of my brush of the color I want, but again, always pat it off. I don't mind if it's super light again and watery, as long as it's not running, because I can always deepen it, because in the beginning, I kind of want it really just see-through. And you can do little as much as you want. I'm almost making it a little heavier so that it's a heavier bit of steam. So it's a little bit more body to it. And with water on your brush, if it's too heavy, you could just wipe off the brush, use the water, and just wipe it away. Um, I guess I made them kind of, I was in the mode of fire and it was kind of like all going straight up, but they could be kind of any which way you want. They can all be like the steam could be going one way but whatever you want. You can make it a little heavier afterwards, just build it up slowly and lightly at first. So there you go. Oh, no, you don't. That's there you go. The last thing I almost forgot is just to shade these socks, all dry with the designs, right? I just take a clean brush, clean water on it. You know how we can side load? I'm going to take Prussian blue. I think it's better than the Payne's gray. Just a little bit on the corner, but be sure to just pat that off. And I just want to shadow down each side. So I'm just going to start and follow the shape of the sock. That's a bit heavy, but at least you can see it. I would take some off. I don't want it quite that much. But doesn't it make the sock look rounded now? So for each little stroke, I just get a little more of blue on my brush. You have plenty of time to soften it and darken it or lighten it while it's wet. So I'm just going to do the same thing down. And it fixes your edge. If your edge is a little bit off, a little wonky, it goes right now and smooths your whole edge. If it's too light and you don't see it, let it dry. and just go over it lightly again. I'd rather have you do it 2 times lightly than go the first time and have it um too dark. And if it is too dark, like I said, while before it dries, just get a little clean brush of water and get that out of there. And there you have it. All right. Well, I'm thanking you for your patience of waiting for this again. And we will have the new designs out to you shortly. And I'm so happy you were here to paint with me. So thank you. If you have any questions, let me know. Please do let me know if you have any questions while you're painting. Okay, see you next time.